Ukrainian refugees in Poland. What should you prepare for after the adoption of the new law on assistance to Ukrainians? And not only about this. I'll tell you more in the upcoming segment. I'm Solomia Vidvitska. This is TSN. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, watch our broadcast, and be sure to comment on what you found most interesting. Next, a few of today's topics. Dangerous rotation.
You start to listen to its crunch. Drones start flying around. One of the vehicles gets hit.
Why is it so difficult for infantrymen to leave their positions? Trump visits King Charles.
Today, as tyranny once again threatens Europe, we and our allies are united in supporting Ukraine to deter aggression and ensure peace.
Is the support for Ukraine well thought out, or is it just a coincidence? How did the second day of the American president's visit to the United Kingdom go? At night, Russia did not strike the railway infrastructure in Poltava region due to a power outage. On several sections, there were delays in passenger train movement. By morning, the situation on the tracks was stabilized, but it was necessary to temporarily change the schedule of suburban trains. There are already 5 dead in Kostiantynivka Donetsk region. The city suffered another enemy strike on residential areas with nearly 30 private homes, 6 apartment buildings, and an administrative building damaged. In Druzhkivka, 5 people were injured and 3 more in Novodonetsk. A 73-year-old man was killed in Slatina, Monakharkivshkina. A 70-year-old woman was injured. Yesterday, the Kharkiv and Kupiansk districts came under attack. The enemy used conventional and FPV drones as well as cluster munitions. 5 law enforcement officers were wounded in Kherson region. The Russians shelled FPV drones and our checkpoints in Berislav and Bilozerka. They struck Kherson with artillery and dropped explosives from a drone. 2 city residents were injured. And now the number of injured in Inhulets has risen to 5. The Russians dropped a guided aerial bomb on the village. There are 2 victims in Zaporizhzhia. In Nikopol, a 78-year-old woman was injured. 18 settlements have been under enemy fire throughout the day. The Russians attacked with artillery and strike drones in Chernihiv and also launched 10 aerial bombs at civilians. As a result, a 25-year-old rescuer was killed and 2 more were injured. Russian troops attacked one of the state emergency service units in Nizhyn with drones. A fire broke out there, and when the rescuers went to extinguish it, the occupiers struck again with a drone, hitting the fire truck directly. As a result, the driver, Master Sergeant of the Civil Protection Service, Alexander Hula, was killed. 2 of his injured colleagues were hospitalized, but this happened on the eve of the professional holiday of rescuers. Last night, an electrical substation in Pidrostove burned down completely. According to the head of the Center for the Study of Occupation, Petro Andriushchenko, it was set on fire by unknown individuals. In addition, last night the Russians kept people awake with drones. Explosions were heard in Volgograd, Saratov, Kursk, Belgorod, and Bryansk. In the Volgograd region, according to Special Operations Forces, the Volgograd oil refinery was hit. This plant operates to meet the needs of the enemy. It is the largest producer of fuel and lubricants in southern Russia. Every year, 15.7 million tons pass through it, which is almost 6% of all oil refining in Russia. And according to preliminary information from the Special Operations Forces, the plant's operations have been halted. And all the way in Bashkortostan, which is 1,400 kilometers from the Ukrainian border, the Gazprom Neftekhim Salavat enterprise is on fire. It is one of the most powerful petrochemical complexes in Russia, and the smoke from this fire can be seen for dozens of kilometers. We are waiting for more details. The situation on the front in the Kharkiv region is critical. The Russians are putting pressure on the defenders of Kupiansk. A counter-sabotage operation is currently underway there. In Yos, they are clearing the city of saboteurs who, the day before, had infiltrated abandoned houses on its outskirts. The head of the city military administration, Andriy Parubiy, said on the United News telethon that the situation in the city is under control. Many Russian soldiers have been killed and taken prisoner. However, quite a few enemies are infiltrating the urban area as the front line is nearby. Right now, the front line is less than a kilometer from the city limits. There are currently more than 1,700 residents remaining in the Kupiansk community. On the right bank, there are over 700 people, and the enemy is advancing near Kindrashivka, Stepova, Novoselivka in the Kharkiv region, and Nova Ivanivka in the Zaporizhzhia region. This was reported by analysts from the Deep State portal. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces have launched a counteroffensive in the Donetsk region, in the Dobropilya-Pokrovsk direction. 7 settlements have been liberated, and about 100 Russians have been taken prisoner. This was announced by President Zelensky, who visited this section of the front. In
In the Pokrovsk area, in the Dobropilia area, there are fierce battles, but we have managed to inflict significant losses on the Russians. Since the start of the operation, our troops have already liberated 160 square kilometers, and more than 170 square kilometers have been cleared of the occupiers. We have significantly increased our exchange fund. Almost 100 Russian prisoners have already been captured. 7 settlements in this direction have been liberated, and another 9 have been cleared of Russian presence.
They are just a few hundred meters away from the occupiers. The infantry of the 65th Mechanized Brigade is holding back the invaders in Zaporizhzhia without sleep. Constantly under enemy fire, the soldiers spend at least 10 days there. They say getting out from the front line is a whole operation in itself. TSN correspondents met the infantrymen during their latest rotation.
In total darkness, the long-awaited headlights appear. The infantry of the 65th is returning from their positions.
To your health, Commander. To the best people in the battalion. The Brave Eagle Gang.
The guys were at the front line for more than 10 days. They admit their only wishes are a shower and some rest, but first, a call home. Getting out of the position and reaching the point where the driver will meet them is an extremely difficult task because of the enemy who is always on the lookout.
You start to break her spine. The drones start to fly around. In the field, you get hit by shrapnel.
It's no easier at the positions, where the Russians keep trying to break through the defensive line. The Russians are hitting our infantry with mortars, artillery, and banned phosphorus munitions. Without sleep, the infantrymen have to be in combat readiness practically 24/7.
The guys keep going, some with cigarettes, some with coffee, some with energy drinks.
After reporting to the commander, the infantrymen head to their home, which now looks like this.
The first times we ended up here, no one could imagine what it would be like to sleep in a sleeping bag like this and on a bed like this. But now we've somehow gotten used to it.
The senior position is held by Dragon. He's only 23. 5 of those years have been at war. He served in air defense, and now he's been in the infantry for almost a year. He recalls his first battle. He captured a Russian AK-12 as a trophy.
At this very moment, everything is completely quiet here for all of us. Since about 1889, something like that.
Did you use it much? Well, we just shot it, though I remember myself.
Yeah, we fired it at the range, sighted it in. It shoots well.
Do you have a captured Mavic that you shot down when it flew over our positions?
You know, no, luck doesn't bring me those. I've had this since the very start of my service in the infantry.
He says he'd like to rest, but right now he lives the war.
After 5 years in the army, I can't see myself in civilian life anymore. I'd like to go away somewhere, to the mountains, to the Carpathians. But I have people who can replace me.
The infantry positions are constantly attacked by Russian FPV drones. Just recently, in one day, 15 strike drones flew in at the fighters. One of them was captured as a trophy.
It's almost intact. You could say it's like mass production. A la Russia, a drone. By the way, it's ready to use.
However, the enemy's hardware damaged their equipment.
Everything burned out. Our electronics are gone. Now we have to restore it because the war goes on.
To recover the losses, the unit has launched a fundraiser. After all, without radios and generators, it's simply impossible for them to work. Daria Nazarova, Zaporizhzhia, TSN 1+1.
1,000 drones and interceptors per month. Very soon, Ukraine will be able to produce that many. This is what Defense Minister Denys Shmyhal promises. The president set this task back in July. And during this time, manufacturers have managed to significantly increase production volumes. They don't disclose exactly how many units are already being made, but they say the process is on schedule. Moreover, it's not just about interceptors. Along with them, it is also necessary to produce ground control systems, radars, and a number of other systems. Because thanks to these, the interceptors are able to effectively shoot down enemy UAVs. And the goal, says Denys Shmyhal, is to intercept absolutely all Russian drones over Ukrainian territory.
I have to repeat, it's not just about producing 1,000 drones. We can reach that level very quickly, even right now. That's just the tip of the iceberg, this large coordinated system that needs to work, which includes electronic warfare systems, radars, acoustic sensors, and so on and so on. It's a large complex, and its implementation actually takes some time.
Another repatriation took place today. 1,000 bodies, which according to the Russians are the bodies of Ukrainian servicemen, have been returned to Ukraine. Regarding the number of returned bodies of soldiers, the Ukrainian side is currently being very cautious in its statements because during previous exchanges, among the bodies of Ukrainian defenders handed over, there were also bodies of Russians. Very soon, investigators and expert institutions of the Ministry of Internal Affairs will begin the identification process to establish the identities of the deceased. And this exchange of bodies is already the 12th since the beginning of this year. Combat parts of enemy drones were destroyed in the Chernihiv region. They were discovered in the Nizhyn and Koryukivka districts. Local residents reported the dangerous finds to the police. The remains of the drones were lying not only in the fields but also in people's yards. Apparently, some of their parts had not detonated and could have exploded at any moment. Bomb disposal experts removed them and neutralized them at a special testing ground. Rescuers remind everyone not to touch or move munitions as they can detonate from the slightest contact. Tetiana Chornovol is returning to the Verkhovna Rada. Today, the Central Election Commission recognized her as an elected member of parliament. Since the beginning of the invasion, Tetiana has served as a servicewoman in the armed forces. She is a grenadier, and recently she has also mastered the profession of FPV drone pilot. On social media, Chornovol shared her observations from the military and complained that the command would not allow her to take leave while her son is growing up without her. Tetiana will enter parliament in place of Andriy Parubiy, who was beaten on August 30th in Lviv because Chornovol was next on the European Solidarity Party list. Tetiana Chornovol, a journalist and public activist, has already served as a deputy in the previous convocation of the Verkhovna Rada. She was a member of the People's Front Party faction and the Committee on National Security and Defense. Quickly, without queues or paperwork, the Rada passed a law on a unified system of social services. In Ukraine, an integrated platform is being created that pulls data from most registries, including information on civil status, real estate, medical data, judicial, tax, and other registries. The unified system will provide Ukrainians with access to services, so there will be no need to visit administrative and social service centers. The unified platform will also handle the registration and payments for internally displaced persons, military personnel, pensioners, and other recipients of social benefits, as explained in Parliament.
The main goal of this bill is to make all these social services accessible, free of charge, and convenient for citizens to receive. There will no longer be any need to bring any certificates, documents, or papers of any kind.
Trump says that Putin let him down, referring to his attempts to end the war through personal contacts with Putin. Trump noted, "I thought this would be the easiest option because of my relationship with President Putin, but he let me down. He really disappointed me." Donald Trump stated this at a press conference with UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer. At the same time, Trump is confident that the war will eventually be ended. "I hope we will have good news soon and everything will be done the right way," Trump said. The British press describes the visit of the American president to the United Kingdom with the words pomp and protests. Today, Donald Trump had a series of official meetings with government officials during his second day in the United Kingdom. On the eve of the visit, King Charles hosted a special banquet for the guest, details of which also made it into the press. What made the reception memorable and why the monarch mentioned Ukraine during it, KTS correspondent Katerina Fedochenko will tell us next.
A banquet fit for a president. That's the kind of headline British newspapers would later use to describe this meeting. The reception hosted by King Charles for Donald Trump made the front pages of all the world's media. And the unusual choice of dresses by the British Queen and the First Lady, whose colors resembled the Ukrainian flag, made people wonder whether it was just a coincidence or if their outfits were a hidden sign of support. But it was the British King who openly spoke about supporting our country when he announced the toast. And he made the honored guest from America not only listen but also nod in response.
In 2 world wars, we fought together to defeat the forces of tyranny. Today, as tyranny once again threatens Europe, we and our allies stand together in supporting Ukraine to contain aggression and ensure peace.
This reception was made symbolic in many ways. For example, the special cognac served at the banquet was from 1913, the very year when the future mother of Donald Trump was born on the Scottish island of Lewis. The American guests were also treated to port wine from 1945 in honor of the 45th President of the United States. There was also a special American-style cocktail on the menu, but all of this was served only after dinner. As for the banquet itself, it was attended by 160 guests. Each guest had 5 glasses and about a dozen pieces of cutlery, the arrangement of which the staff meticulously measured with rulers.
A wonderful gentleman and a wonderful king.
The lavish reception for the American president is being held against the backdrop of mass protests. Around 5,000 Britons took part in demonstrations against Trump's visit. But the British authorities have their own agenda. It's not just about trade interests or strengthening cooperation with America. According to media reports, King Charles was used as the British's secret diplomatic weapon. Politico writes that diplomats spent a long time searching for a way to push Trump toward decisive action regarding Russia and Putin. And they decided to ask the king, who is sympathetic to our country, for help. Today, Donald Trump is holding meetings with the British Prime Minister and government officials. They are discussing a new nuclear deal, technology, tariffs, and Ukraine. In the evening, a joint press conference is being held with the British Prime Minister. After that, the US President and the First Lady are heading home to Washington. Katerina Fedorchenko, TSN 1+1.
Let's discuss your visit to Pavlodon. We understand you went to a rather unknown but specialized prize-winning building in London. Could you share what impressed you the most about that experience? Following your visit, you made some thought-provoking comments mentioning a tribal quality and the idea that everything new is mediocre. You then suggested that the public square is now centered on this. We would be very interested if you could please elaborate on that perspective for us. The Polish Parliament's document contains important changes. In particular, it ties social assistance to professional employment and restricts Ukrainians' access to medical services. The document following Sam was burned over Poland. Thus, for the law to come into force, it still needs to be signed by the head of state. And Karol Nawrocki supports some of the initiatives in the new law. In particular, the provision that ties social assistance payments to the professional employment of Ukrainians. According to the new rules, payments will be received by parents who are employed and whose children are enrolled in Polish schools. Exceptions will be made only for parents of children with disabilities. To do this, they will need to obtain a Polish disability certificate, and the document also proposes to restrict access of adult Ukrainian citizens to medical services. Current Polish legislation grants Ukrainians protection until March 2026, and after the new government proposed to change the rules for providing assistance, the European Commission reminded Warsaw of its obligation to provide social and medical assistance to Ukrainians who lack resources. Ukraine will share its unique experience teaching Poland how to effectively shoot down Russian drones, as well as how to track them, distinguish decoys from strike Shaheds, and understand when to use interceptor drones and when to deploy jamming systems or missiles. The countries, says Ukrainian Defense Minister Denys Shmyhal, have previously exchanged experience in this field. This time, however, it is about creating a joint operational group for unmanned systems. It will coordinate the work of both countries, strengthen the necessary infrastructure, and of course focus on training the military personnel who will defend the airspace. The Polish Ministry of Defense adds that Ukraine has unique combat experience as well as unique technologies. That is why Poland is interested in the joint development and production of unmanned vehicles, air, land, and sea. Both private and state manufacturers are ready to join in, especially after the drone attack on Poland. Russia has shown that it poses a threat not only to Ukraine, but to all European allies as well.
We are ready to teach our Polish friends how to coordinate all this work, an absolutely complex mechanism, besides just protecting the airspace. We are also ready to share our experience in creating the so-called drone line. That is, these are entire ecosystems that protect and create a drone wall on the ground, and that form a drone dome, a drone missile dome, and an aviation dome.
For us, it is very important to cooperate, including at the ministerial level, to exchange and implement combat experience, because over more than 3 years, Ukraine has made tremendous progress, not only in the ability to fight, but also in weapons production. And we also want our countries to jointly develop and produce them.
There are currently no long lines at the border crossing points with Poland. This was reported by the State Border Guard Service, which yesterday warned about a buildup of cars at the Shehyni checkpoint. The delay there was due to repair work on the Ukrainian side and the periodic maintenance of the biometric control system carried out by the Polish side. Starting from October 12th, a new digital control system will be introduced for citizens of third countries. And this system requires mandatory scanning of biometric data, including facial images and fingerprints, both when entering Ukraine and when leaving the country. Therefore, Ukrainians were warned that the test procedures could increase the time required to pass through control. Today, the situation at the Polish border has normalized. A small queue during the day on September 18th was recorded only at the Kharkiv checkpoint, according to Andriy Demchenko, spokesperson for the State Border Guard Service.
As of right now, and very fortunately, we are not observing any particularly large queues building up or accumulating at the international border. In certain directions, for example, at the Kharkiv checkpoint, there are currently about 60 cars. Meanwhile, at other border crossing points, including, for example, the Shehyni checkpoint, you will find that the queues are significantly smaller. As for the queue at the border,